But one of my favorites in the last couple months.
Yeah. I was really took to it.
Speaking.
Welcome to our media briefing on day 45. We're going to miss you guys. Not.
And gals.
So we welcome those who are watching over the internet, and please send in your questions, and we'll open it up to questions from the media.
We're hearing there's going to be no deal on Medicaid expansion.
Have you ever been in a long tunnel and you could see the light, but it was like a pinhead? There's still light at the end of the tunnel. We're still working on it.
Who's a pinhead in the center?
Be careful.
No comment.
Is there any movement on that? I saw Senator Shizawa poke his head in. He was on the dais with Representative Dunnigan during the session. So is
There has been movement over the last 24 hours.
What is the movement?
Trying to come to some agreement between the House, the Senate, and the governor's office.
And how would you envision that agreement? What might that agreement look like? What's possible at this point?
There's a number of things possible. A marriage of the two bills, some middle ground between them. Those are the issues that are on the table right now and we're discussing.
at this point, is anything going to get done before midnight?
I think that's a possibility. Obviously, it's getting less of a possibility as hours move on.
Senator Hilliard said that Jonathan Ball needed some time to make some maneuvers here. Is that part of the equation still?
Jonathan Ball?
Yeah, in terms of just the way
Oh,
that
the budget?
the money was going to work. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a minor issue.
Fair enough.
That's the least of our worries right now. Just coming to an agreement is the first thing we need to do. We could adjourn and come back in a special session in a week or a few days if we needed to button something up, if we came to agreement.
Is that what it's looking like though at this point? If there's been movement and you're seemingly more
I
happy
would
about
comment on what things are looking at like. We're still working on it.
Gotcha. I wanted to ask, mostly stalling for time until Senator Shizawa walks in and then it counts. But I wanted to ask about House Bill 322, which passed after 296 and 297 passed in the House. That's the religious liberties only bill. It's headed over here to the Senate.
Representative Christensen's bill.
Yes. So what's going to happen to that bill today? Are you guys going to vote on it?
So we just received it, Ralph?
We just received it. It's going to be down the list, as you saw there before we recessed. We added still some fiscal note bills, appropriations bills that we have to pass, and so they went to the top of the calendar. And so we're working, the House has control of our calendar at this point. We're telling them, you bring us your lists. We'll work down your lists as you prioritize them, and they're doing the same thing on our bills over on their board. So we're going to be working down it. We'll see where we get on their list and what their priorities are.
Any opinions on the bill?
We just got the bill and we're going to be talking about it in caucus today.
Can you talk about
Your-
the gas tax, where you are on that?
We'll be talking about that in caucus as well. There's a lot of things we're still looking at. It's going to be the first item we talk about in caucus.
In that tunnel, that light's a lot bigger.
I see Johnny Anderson's bill is on your list there.
Yeah.
Thinking of putting some kind of compromise in that? Or?
A lot of options still out there, still some things we're looking at, trying to negotiate. That's something that can happen.
But what are your thoughts about the local option? Does the local option pass the buck rather than the legislature making a hard decision?
Well, the Senate so far hasn't been that excited about the local option. But our political subdivisions, counties, cities are struggling with infrastructure. Infrastructure is a big issue for our state. We're a growth state. We have huge needs: water, roads, sewers. All those issues as we grow are going to be a big budget item for us. And so we need to address those things sooner than later, because it will be a big problem if we don't increment it going forward.
You said you're not favorably disposed to the local option, or the Senate isn't.
No,
Why not?
we're looking at increasing gas tax. Senator Osmond's, I think it's Senate Bill 97, increases taxes for our education system, $75 million. I think that passed the House, although in a different form. They're in a conference committee trying to work that out. There's just a lot of those increases, and so far, I'm not saying we're not going to do it. I think there's some real possibilities for that. It's just we're struggling over all the increases. But without the legislature giving options to the political subdivisions, they can't do it on their own. There has to be some legislative changes to the statute to enable them to take that to a vote of the people.
You have a sign back here that says when the going gets tough, the tough cut spending.
Yeah, that hasn't worked very well this year. We've had a lot of money, and when there's a lot of money, we tend to want to spend it all.
Do you feel badly about that?
I think I don't, because I believe we spend it well. We have been able to fill some gaps. We've been able to fund some projects more fully for our social services, those in our communities that are disabled or who are indigent. They've received a big increase this year, and we've increased, if you include Senator Osmond's bill, we've increased education funding $515 million, $500 million. And that's a much needed boost to our education system this year.
Be able to keep it up, you think, in future years? I mean, yeah, you were able to increase it $500 million this year, but I mean, they're going to be back. They're going to want more.
Yeah, they are, and we've gone through cycles before. It's very, very common. This is not unlike what's happened in previous years. 2007, 2008, we had $1 billion surplus, and fortunately, we didn't spend all the money then or raise everything up so far that was unsustainable. And so we feel like we've increased enough that it is sustainable. Our economy's good. But, probably next year, unless there's a huge increase in the economy, there probably won't be that big boost to education.
I'd like to add, we put $65 million of ongoing revenue in capital improvements. So that's now fully funded, about $120 million of ongoing revenue. That saved us in 2008. And so rather than just spending and building into bases, we now have the money. If the revenue does go down, we can fill it back in with one-time money, or worse comes to worse, even bonds for some of the capital needs we had. But that was a tough pull to get that done, but I'm really glad we did it.
Other questions?
Can I ask you sort of a general impression of the session question? We got to do our big look back pieces. I think everybody's doing those today. You said the other day that this was sort of you had a bigger agenda, or more issues, more weighty issues than you've seen since 2007. How do you feel like the legislature dealt with those issues? And can you talk a little bit about, sort of the burden, I guess, of juggling all those?
Well, first of all, we've had some major success with religious liberties and anti-discrimination. We have Senator Backus here. How do you feel like the session's gone?
I think it's going to be judged by the next few hours. We're gonna know where we end up on the education, where we're going to end up really on LGBT, religious issues, where we're going to end up on transportation. All the issues we've talked about are going to come together in the sausage. But I'm an optimist. I think it's going to be the best session we've ever had, that all these things are going to come together pretty much the way I want it. And it's going to be a terrific session.
Even past the bill this time.
You were a bit surprised that you started out with well, you didn't start out, but you ended up with $739 million extra, and you raised taxes.
Remember,
is this normal for a Republican legislature?
Remember that was about half of that's one time. In fact, more than half of that's one time. So we can only grow government by what we have ongoing funding, and that was what,
so
$315 million?
And you still raise taxes.
We did in the targeted area of equalizing the property tax, which is an essential element for the funding of capital facilities and public education. we have some school districts, because of low property assessed valuation and high student population, that the kids are just not getting a fair treatment. And that's what Senate Bill 97 did, is went back to where the taxes would have been had we taken natural inflation every year. We've stopped that. It's just taken the natural inflation, and that money goes directly to schools to help with capital needs of buildings and computers and these kind of programs. And yeah, we did raise taxes, but you need to understand there's different pots and different ways to spend money. That was a funding mechanism that we really haven't been able to do, and that's what really the property tax is for, is to help public education and the capital needs.
But Bob, this dynamic has been happening now for over a decade. We've been moving money out of the education fund through higher ed to general fund needs and to transportation. And that's because we have been unwilling to raise the gas tax. The time has come that we can't do that anymore. Whether you have a budget surplus or ongoing or not, we cannot sustain that. We have to keep our transportation needs focused on on motor fuel taxes or some kind of a user fee, because if we don't, we will continue to shift more money out of education into general fund, and that's not good for our public ed or higher ed systems. And so that's why it's being talked about this year. We're going to hopefully get at least a 5-cent increase. That will help stop this bleeding of education money towards transportation.
And it is
Senator Davis?
fiscally responsible, I think.
Yeah.
It really comes back to responsibility.
The roads should be paid by those who use them, and we are subsidizing roads with general fund money and have for many years.
Senator Niederhauser, at the risk of turning this back to Help Utah, and we don't have to go back to all that too much right now, but what's your thought? The mantra of everybody going into the session was doing nothing is not an option. And now that's looking like it's a very likely option.
Well, I think we need to highlight the progress that's been made. The House has passed a bill, so they've indicated that doing nothing is off the table, and we've passed a bill. Now it's just trying to get bodies together and governor together to agree on what that looks like.
But at the end of at midnight, it still may be nothing.
Yes, I mean it's a big possibility.
Can we ask Senator Shiazawa?
But I should say too that doesn't mean that we're not going to be moving forward to try and bring something together.
Step into the hot seat, please.
Be careful with him. He's only a freshman senator.
I know, but boy, has he gotten a hazing ritual.
He's not a freshman.
Senator, what is the status of the negotiations over Healthy Utah? Do you have a deal?
I have been visiting almost daily with Representative Dunnigan, and less so with the Speaker, but right now there is no deal.
Will there be a deal today?
We're still working on that over the next few hours, and we'll probably come up with a definite statement here for everyone on this particular item. Anecdotally, I just want to tell you that working with Representative Dunnigan personally has been very rewarding. He's been very reasonable, and we're very close in terms of our negotiations and talks on what we think is a good compromise between the two positions in the House and the Senate.
I've worked closely with Representative Dunnigan when I co-chaired Health Systems Reform with him. He is, if he's not the sharpest person on health issues, he's pretty close to the best mind we have in the legislature.
But at this point, I mean, we have hours left, here, and if there is anything going to happen, it's not going to happen before midnight.
Let's keep
I've
hoping.
seen more startling things.
Let's keep hoping.
Gotcha. What is the sticking points, can you say?
I think the sticking points are still as they were before, and that's concerns with the House coming into agreement with the Senate and probably the executive branch on certain points of this agreement, primarily on the full expansion and even the group from 100 to 138% of the federal poverty line. That seems to be the biggest problem in terms of policy.
Sustainability, predictability, those are the things we're discussing.
What does this say? What would it say if you get to midnight and there's nothing? Absolutely nothing.
What it would say to me is, we've got some more work to do over the next few weeks and months and get this done. We will come to the end of this session. If we come to the end of this session with nothing, that just means that now we have our work cut out for us for this summer and fall to get something done.
You know, we lost $350 million last year. We're going to lose $360 million this year. We need to make a decision. This sauntering about this issue is a significant economic and medical issue, I think, for all the citizens of the state of Utah. There are costs to us delaying, and I hope there is a middle ground here, and that's we just all accept full Medicaid expansion, and we could all go home, and it would be a great solution.
There's also a cost in doing something wrong. I think that's the real question, and I would characterize it, Brian, that we haven't done nothing. We really moved and got some ideas working together, which is part of the legislative process.
But to the issue of time, do you have a sense of urgency?
Well, my mind thrust is the budget, and the budget
I
is
spent most of the day
done.
off the dais yesterday working on this. It is an urgent issue for us.
Remember, the one thing that happens if Healthy Utah doesn't go through this year, and we delay it a year, it only means it's a one-year program instead of a two-year program. Funding the way it's planned to be funded.
Senator Shiwazawa, beyond the cost element, talk about the personal element and what this means for the tens of thousands who have no care if no deal is reached tonight.
You're absolutely right. We can't just talk in abstract terms about numbers, about economic benefits or lack of economic benefits. We have to look at the 90,000 or so Utahns under the coverage gap and what happens to them during this period of time. And there will be a cost to pay, and it will be a cost every month that we delay. So that's a very real concern. It's one that I see when I go back to the hospital, and we see that we'll care for these patients in the way we can. But you're right, the plan would have helped and will help when we get a plan worked out. We'll help these people. But you're right, we cannot forget about that segment of the population.
Back to Robert's earlier question, kind of assessing the session, successes with religious liberties, non-discrimination, maybe not so much success with Medicaid expansion. How do you think the session is going to be viewed overall by people given those interests?
Well, it depends on how you report it. Banner year for education funding. Religious liberties, anti-discrimination. I believe we'll come to some transportation. I think we'll close that issue at least this year. That's in the works. We're really close to an agreement on that. Medicaid expansion. It looks like that we might not come to an absolute agreement here, but we will continue to move forward. We've made a lot of advances this year. Both houses have agreed that we're not going to do that not doing anything is off the table. We've all voted for an expansion, a coverage for the uninsured, and so I would say that it's a huge success. We had a lot of big ticket items, and we've addressed 3/4 of them. And hopefully we'll get to some kind of a conclusion on Medicaid. If it isn't today, it will be during the first few months of the interim.
Back to a question related to 322. Do you have to have 322 after passing 297?
I don't know enough about 322. Senator Adams not here. Senator DeBackus, are you familiar with 322?
You know what, I never saw 322. They just, Representative Christensen gave me a thing. I read it. It is not something that the LGBT community can live with. It is a disaster, and it would completely undo everything that is with the other two bills if the legislature were to pass that. The message that has gone forth after these months and months of serious people seriously negotiating and coming up with this delicate balance, if the legislature sent Representative Christensen's message, would be devastated.
I think it's fair to say that the bill has some challenges just because of process. 296, 297 brought all the parties together, and they drafted the bills together. And it worked out all the differences. And they didn't come out, they didn't go to a committee until there was some agreement. And I just don't think that 322 has had that kind of process.
And so no vote on 322? Or where do you see that?
We're going to caucus. We'll be talking about it this afternoon.
So stay tuned to see if it hits the board tonight.
Yeah, stay tuned. Stay tuned for a lot of things.
Don't call before 11:39.
We've learned that a long time ago.
So Kirsten, any questions from viewers?
You're off the hook for about a year.
Dang it.
You're off the hook, please tell me.
Any other questions? All right.
Are you guys going to be available this evening? 8-ish, 9-ish time?
We should do that. I think it'd be kind of fun to have a... Rick, do you want to set something up?
Just because...
We'll saunter for a little while and
sounds
come in and have some press
I
availability.
think, we'll have a clearer picture of gas tax and Medicaid then.
Sure.
Those are two big ones.
You people are here.
I like
Brian
it.
Blaze through at 5 o'clock. He goes home at 5. He's not going to be around.
Yes.
You have to remember,
Got things to do.
tomorrow's his day off, before he works hard in the weekend.
That's right.
A reminder that the governor and the president and the speaker will be signing the bill, the non-discrimination bill, at 6
6
o'clock.
o'clock.
Yeah, down in the rotunda. So,
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Is he signing, you know if he's signing 297?